Well, folks, we are a month in and there is no data to be seen. You know they have details that they're not telling us. So for all we know, they're right around the corner from arresting somebody, but you wouldn't know that by what you can find on the internet. I've scoured and it's the same old stuff, just regurgitated and sensationalized. I did see a clip that said, Sheriff said we're getting close, but I don't know what that matters. When Sunday, when I was golfing, I pulled my phone up and there was a TikTok video that said they found her body floating in a lake. So I'm not sure you can believe anything that you see in anything that's clickable. And really, let's take a look at this AI thing. Now, I watched this AI thing, and I don't know if this is the same one, but it's the same environment and the same fake guy. And the data was excellent, but I'm sick of AI. I'm sick of just AI. Come on now. Let's take a look, go and watch that for a second.
Blood on the porcelain tile near the front door was the first contradiction. It sat undisturbed, a vivid crimson marker in a house that should have been a sanctuary. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old, a woman whose world was measured in the 50
Now,
yards she could walk
he talks
before her
about
strength
her.
failed.
Let me pause that.
On the morning of February 1st,
He talks about her several times in the past tense. So I don't know, some guy in China sitting there writing this script and putting it into AI, who the hell knows? Underneath the Possum County logo in the corner, it says George, expert commentator. Now, this is really good AI, but you watch some of the breaths and whatnot, and you can see that, and his eyes will twitch a little bit, but this is one of the best AIs I've ever seen. But still, I'm sick of it.
that world collapsed. Investigators in Pima County didn't find a struggle. They found a surgical extraction. The security cameras hadn't just failed. They had been executed in a precise, methodical sequence. No alarm triggered, no windows shattered by a stranger, just an open back door and a silence that has now lasted 28 days. The primary suspect isn't a ghost or a drifter. He is the man Nancy trusted to call family. 28 days have passed since Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home, and the investigative atmosphere has shifted from a desperate search to a high level.
So, you know the old saying, no news is good news, but not in this case. Um, I fear the worst, but even if she's gone, you want to know what happened, right? Everybody and need the family needs closure, and us idiots on the internet kind of want to know what happened just for our own uh, edification, own satisfaction. It's a terrible thing, but I don't see any good coming of this. There was a little more about the son-in-law being the suspect, but now there's a tattoo that's visible on the man's wrist in the video. Well, does the son-in-law have that tattoo? Or is it somebody that he put up to it? They're also saying there may be as many as 2 or 3 people. One guy at the door taking the camera, putting the bushes on the camera. Maybe another guy in the getaway car and another guy in the back. And they mentioned something sticking out. Some say it's a cell phone jammer, a wireless jammer, so that any phones or camera can't transmit the data. Somebody else said it's just a walkie-talkie so they can talk to the getaway driver without having an iPhone or Google phone trace from the towers and whatnot. So it's a lot of guessing. I don't think anybody really knows. And I never did hear anything having become of the backpack and the jacket from Walmart. Is Walmart still combing the records looking for who might have bought both of those items together? But who knows? The guy might have had the jacket for 2 years and the backpack for 90 days, or the other way around, or both of them. Who knows? That could be a dead end, but you never know. They may hit something and that'd be the thing that solves it all. But I never really quite got enough data on why the son-in-law is a suspect But then the sheriff says the whole family's been cleared. Now, when the U.S. attorneys came in the building, it was the last people to go in the building, and then they released the house back to the family, which means they're not going to go doing any more forensic searches, at least. And that doesn't mean they're done. They got all the stuff that they want to analyze. It's back in Phoenix, and they may have a lot of information that they're not telling us about, which that's fine because we don't need to know everything, especially if there's items that only the perpetrator would know. That you need to keep that silent. So if it comes out, give a man enough rope and he'll hang himself. Anyway, boy, I don't know. A month is a long time. And then there's the pacemaker detail. Now the pacemaker may continue working just fine, but the Apple Watch that monitors it, not turned on anymore. I don't know if they ever found that. And then there's the issue, which I haven't heard them mention since the beginning, that she is on some very important life-saving drugs that she doesn't have. Now, are kidnappers savvy enough to kidnap her, take her to Mexico, and go to a pharmacy and get the drugs she needs to keep her alive? That's highly unlikely, unless it was really, really, really planned out. I doubt kidnappers are working at that level, but you never know. I don't know. I look around and let's go back to this George feller for a minute.
Forensic siege. This is no longer a missing persons case. It is a reconstruction of a betrayal. Nancy, the mother of television journalist Savannah Guthrie, required assistance for basic mobility. Yet, on that February morning, she bypassed every electronic safeguard designed to protect her. Court filings and investigative activity indicate that the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI have moved past the theory of a random intruder.
I'm not sure if it's this video or something else I saw, but they said, I think I heard them say there was another camera in the house that was bypassed, which tells you somebody knew where to go to get those down. They mentioned that, but I don't trust anything. You got to sensationalized rumors is all we really have, so I don't actually trust any information.
The precision required to disable the home security network suggests an intimate familiarity with the property's blind spots. A stranger would have been captured. A stranger would have tripped the logic of the system. Instead, the cameras were removed or destroyed before Nancy disappeared, suggesting
cameras, plural.
The perpetrator knew exactly where the digital witnesses were stationed. The focus has now narrowed with singular intent.
That is a good term there, digital witness. I like that.
On Nancy's son-in-law, the husband of Savannah's sister, Annie Guthrie. It is a shift based not on mere proximity, but on a growing mountain of physical and behavioral evidence.
So I got to tell you, AI George is doing a hell of a job. Going to put a lot of actors out of business, and you got, let's leave some names out of it. If you got some politicians that aren't really up to making it to the camera interview, you put old George in there, apply whoever's likeness to it, and he's going to do a hell of a job.
The crime scene.
You wait till we elect an AI president. I hired an AI deputy in Possum County to round up those damn cats, but that went awry. But you wait till we have an AI president elected. It's going to be rough.
At the Guthrie residence presented a series of deliberate paradoxes. To the untrained eye, the forced entry at the front door suggested a violent burglary. But forensic experts see a different narrative, the staging of a crime. A family member with a key has no need to break a window. unless that broken window is the only way to explain a presence that shouldn't be there. Then there is
So what old George is telling us is whoever did go in and get her broke nothing to get in. Now, if you were going to kidnap a relative and you use a key to get in and then leave and they know you didn't break anything, you're kind of an idiot because you should have did something to take yourself off the track, off the trail. Maybe break a window or something and make it look like, oh yeah, they came in right there. But who knows? Who knows?
the blood found near the entrance. It tells a story of an immediate, incapacitating event. But the trail does not continue. It stops abruptly at the threshold. Nancy could not walk more than 50 yards, yet there are no drag marks in the gravel, no biological traces leading to the driveway. How do you move a vulnerable woman from a house to a vehicle without leaving?
That's another odd thing. Now, I got to admit, I didn't listen to this stuff through and through, so I might be picking up stuff that's already been talked about, but the blood trail just stops at the tile. So if she had walked from the porch to a car, they would have found more blood, number one. It just does not make sense. There's something missing that they're not telling us. There's something out there that we don't know that they know. This just does not make sense.
Leaving a single mark on the earth? The answer points to preparation. It points to a container, a wheelchair.
So even if they had a wheelchair, I believe the path leading up to the front had some gravel in it. The wheelchair would have left some tracks. It just doesn't make sense. Somebody pick her up and carry her. You know, if your blood's dripping down, but if you carry them in fetal position like this, then maybe no more blood dropped. That's a possibility that she was carried off the porch to a car.
Or a professional grade transport device designed to contain the evidence. The psychology of the perpetrator is caught between brilliance and amateurism. While the sequence of camera destruction was methodical, one camera was found obscured by a simple handful of grass and flowers. This creates...
Well, I don't think they ever actually got the camera obscured. It was like an attempt, but I don't think they covered it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
a cognitive dissonance for investigators. Was this the act of a sophisticated criminal using a signal jammer, or an amateur acting under extreme emotional pressure? Reports have surfaced regarding a suspect captured in a photograph with a distinctive object protruding from his pocket. To some, it appears to be a walkie-talkie antenna, a tool for communicating with a getaway driver without the digital footprint of a mobile phone.
Yeah, so I did hear that from George. I wasn't sure if I heard that here or somewhere else. As I watched this yesterday evening in its entirety, even though I'm sick of the AI, but the information seemed to be good. But is it reliable? I don't know. He's guessing about the cell phone jammer and the this and that. He's making the wheelchair and they're guessing at it, but that's all anybody can do anyway.
To others, it bears the profile of a signal jammer, a device used to kill Wi-Fi-based security feeds.
Signal whammer jammer.
If a mobile phone was intentionally left behind to avoid geofencing, it suggests a level of forensic awareness that matches the destruction.
Did they say that? Was her cell phone in the house? Did she have a cell phone? I don't know that. Sorry.
Of the house's internal cameras. Why would someone go to such lengths to vanish an 84-year-old woman unless the motive was deeply personal or financial? The investigation reached a point of no return when the authorities made a move that signaled they were no longer just asking questions. They weren't looking for a mysterious van or an outside threat. They moved directly against the family's inner sanctum. They seized the vehicle belonging to Annie Guthrie. In high-profile disappearances, a family member's car is not impounded on a whim. It is taken only when investigators believe the vehicle itself is the crime scene. And what they found in the digital logs of that car would change the trajectory of the entire case. The Motion 2, a modern vehicle, is a rolling black box. It records every door opening, every change in seat weight, and every GPS coordinate with time-stamped precision.
Have you heard some of the things about the traffic cameras and the license plate readers? Some of them not being in record mode. Then what the hell is the camera for? Is it watching live only just to capture the plate to charge a toll? What do you need traffic cams and license plate readers if it doesn't save the data? I don't get it.
When the Pima County authorities and the FBI impounded Annie Guthrie's vehicle, they weren't just looking for physical DNA or fibers from Nancy's clothing. They were looking for the car's memory. Forensic technicians are currently extracting data to determine if the car was stationary at the home during the critical window of Nancy's disappearance. If the seat sensors recorded a weight consistent with an elderly woman being placed in the rear or the boot, the inside.
The boot. That tells you the odds of the person that wrote that is not an American. The boot. That is like a British. That's a British phrase for the trunk of the car, the boot. Now, back in the 1800s, they used to call that the boot on the back of the stagecoach. But us Americans don't regularly say boot when we mean trunk.
Job theory moves from an allegation to a forensic certainty. Meanwhile, the FBI's involvement has deepened. Agents have spent hours at the home shared by Annie and her husband, searching for more than just physical evidence. They are looking for the why. Financial records, digital search histories, and evidence of recent heavy cleaning are all under the microscope. There is a specific
recent heavy cleaning of what? Now, if the son-in-law has his car all polished up and triple cleaned and steam cleaned and vacuumed and polished and dusted and turned over, that might be something worth knowing. But old George here is spitting out details without explanations. But he's doing a hell of a job for an AI guy, I got to tell you.
specific focus on the financial pressures of long-term care. Caring for a vulnerable relative with limited mobility creates a unique brand of stress, and in some cases, a motive for those looking for an inheritance or relief from a financial burden.
That's quite a stretch there. Well, let's get rid of her because we don't want the financial burden, or let's kidnap her and get the ransom we can get. That's a long stretch between motives there.
Ransom emails sent to media outlets like TMZ, rather than the family, have been largely dismissed by federal agents as a clumsy distraction. The demand for Bitcoin, appearing days after the disappearance, carries the hallmarks of a perpetrator trying to script a kidnapping narrative after the fact. It is a common pattern in domestic crimes.
Yeah, do you think all those the Bitcoin and the notes and all that stuff are fake? Now, you know, the one guy, he said he had information as to who had her, who took her, and who had her, but he wanted half the reward up front, and then he would tell and get the rest of the reward. I believe that guy's gone dark. He probably got scared he's going to get arrested, but that may have been all fake also, just trying to get the first half of the reward and run off. But I don't believe anything until I see an FBI guy on the TV telling me, and then even that, you got to believe it's not the whole truth. But anything you can click on, like my dumbass, don't believe it until you see a reputable source from a media outlet. You know, I guess you could trust CNN on something like this because it's not political. Fox, whichever one you hate, I think you're safe because this is not a political thing. Whichever side of the fence you're on. But old George here, Let's get back to George. Let him tell us what's going on.
Create a false trail of professional criminality to hide a personal betrayal. But the FBI is not looking at the emails. They are looking at the 50-yard gap between the front door and the gravel driveway where the blood trail ended.
That is very interesting. That what caught my eye or my ear yesterday. How do you explain that? How did you get her? I think the lady's only 5'4" or something like that, but she wasn't a tiny 5'4", so she weighed a good bit. You would struggle to pick somebody up and carry him 50 yards. Uh, Maybe she was unconscious at the time. Who knows?
For weeks, the Guthrie home was a cordoned off mystery. Then a final walkthrough occurred that caught the attention of every legal observer. It wasn't just detectives in the house. A man and a woman in formal suits were seen traversing the rooms, documenting the layout with the precision of a trial run. They were not FBI agents, they were U.S. attorneys. Their presence inside the crime scene signifies that the evidence has moved beyond the laboratory. It has reached the prosecutors. What they found inside that house during that final walkthrough suggests the case is no longer about finding Nancy. It's about proving how she was taken. The presence of federal prosecutors suggests that a grand jury or a formal indictment is the next logical step.
Now, if that's the case, that's crazy. So, if this AI guy right here is even close to being right, you might see cuffs slapped on old son-in-law there soon, whoever they think did it. But I go back to what I said before. I think they know stuff that they couldn't act on until they accumulated enough data to make sure an arrest would stick. You don't want to arrest somebody half-assed and have to let them go, and the next thing you know, the guy's in Bahrain or something. So I keep looking to the left because I got OBS over here and I can see myself over here and George over here.
The house has now been officially released back to the family.
So don't be surprised if you see something in the news of somebody getting arrested soon, a big breakthrough, but still finding her alive is going to be a stretch. But either way, we still got to find the perpetrator and the motive.
A sign that law enforcement has extracted every possible molecule of evidence. From the 3 to 4 weeks spent processing the interior, it is clear that investigators were looking for more.
You know what? I'm sorry. You know what was getting me about old George here? Now this is AI, but there's hairs out of place sticking on his head. Like AI knew to put hair sticking out of place. Like, what? Tell me what the hell. If anybody's an AI expert and knows the gist here, let me know.
Than just the obvious. They were mapping the digital ghosts of the security system. We now know that the FBI has returned a large portion of its technical team to Phoenix. This isn't a sign of the case going cold. It's a sign of the workload shifting. They have thousands of hours of video to review. Not from Ring cameras. There aren't enough in Nancy's neighborhood to account for that volume, but from traffic cameras and automated number plate recognition systems across the county. They are tracing the movement of every vehicle connected to the Guthrie family circle. There is also the matter of the polygraph tests. While the sheriff's office claimed polygraphs seen on site were for new hires, sources indicate the FBI administered separate tests to individuals within the investigation's lead herd. A polygraph is not admissible in court, but it is a power.
Some of that I did not catch yesterday So apparently people saw polygraph experts and machines or whatever. Oh no, that's not for Nancy Guthrie. That's for some new hires that we got. That is fishy. That is fishy.
Powerful triage tool. It allows investigators to see who flinches when asked about the morning of February 1st. In the world of high stakes,
If you had a body, what do they call the body? Can't think of what you call they look at the expressions and the movements. You could put a fake polygraph out there and just watch what that person does when they're lying, and there's people that know how to tell that. What the hell am I trying to remember? Body. I can't think of the title.
Interrogation, a refusal to take the test is often as informative as a failure. The backpack seen in the suspect's possession remains a focal point. Its volume suggests it contained more than just tools. Experts suggest it likely held the materials for incapacitation, zip ties, tape, or tarps. If Nancy was deceived,
I did notice that backpack, now, call me out if I'm wrong. I did notice that backpack looks full.
Before she was removed from the home, the backpack would have carried the means to ensure no biological evidence was left during the transport across those final 50 yards. Every action taken by the perpetrator, the camera sequence, the staged entry, the ransom distraction, was designed to buy time. But in a forensic investigation, time eventually works for the state. The legal status of this case is currently in a state of high tension equilibrium.
See, what I was saying before, regardless if this is coming from an AI robot thing that we're all sick of already, and we're only scratching the surface of our AI world that's coming, it seems like good information, or at least good assumptions, possibilities, but again, not one bit of actual data that's telling us anything. Just assumptions. Now, there are some good things that we may not have thought of, whatnot, but
the Pima County
there
Sheriff's
you go,
Office
George.
has reallocated some detectives to other duties, a move that often triggers public fear of a cold case. However, the reality is procedural. A core team remains dedicated exclusively to Nancy Guthrie. The heavy lifting is now in the hands of the digital forensic.
Looky there. He's just George, expert commentator. He ain't got no last name. He ain't got no personal identity. He don't work for nobody.
Labs and the U.S. Attorney's Office. The seizure of Annie Guthrie's vehicle is the pivot point. If DNA is found in a location that contradicts a family member's statement, the legal threshold for probable cause is met. The investigation is currently navigating the silent phase. This is where the public sees no movement, but the evidence is being locked into a prosecution.
See, that makes perfect sense. They're not gonna, if they found something like, oh, we found a gun in the bushes, you might hear that. But the highly technical forensic evidence, they're not going to tell you every bit of that on the news each night. The FBI is storing that away to solve the case. They don't care about the public eye of the case. They want to know what the hell happened and who did it. They're not working for us. They're working for their own agenda to solve the crime.
Timeline. We are waiting for the genetic genealogy and the final report on the car's telematics. There is also the question of the $1 million reward. While a massive sum, its timing is critical. In the first 48 hours, such a reward can break a case. After 28 days, it becomes a test of loyalty. If someone within the family circle.
So George here is not live. I watched that yesterday. I'm live. I'm a real person live right now. If you jump on here, hit the chat button, maybe hit a like or something. I won't know I don't think I'll know you're here unless you actually chat something. I don't think I have it set to pop up and tell me, oh, there's somebody in the chat. But if you chat, I'll see it over here on my left side over here.
Or a close associate knows the truth. They are now weighing a life-changing sum of money against the prospect of being charged as an accessory.
That's another thing. You got 3 suspects. You get one and you threaten him with what's going to happen to him in the prison, if you know what I mean. And he may start talking about the other 2. It's assuming they got more than one suspect or any suspect.
To a federal crime. The FBI doesn't offer anonymity in the traditional sense. They offer protection for those who provide the key to a conviction. As we enter the second month since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, the silence surrounding the house on the hill has become absolute. The generators are gone, the media tents have packed up, and the humming of the news cycle has moved toward international conflicts. But for the investigators in Pima County, the work has only become more granular. The next concrete event will likely be the return of the forensic data from the seized vehicle. That report will determine whether an arrest is imminent or if the investigation must widen.
I will bet you dollars to a donut that we don't see anything. We don't see anything before there is an arrest.
In its net once more. We are also watching for the results of the search of Annie and Tommaso's residence, specifically whether any cleaning agents or digital traces of the ransom.
By the way, Tommaso just looks guilty. He's not he looks like somebody they would stop and not let him on a plane and put him on a no-fly list. I'm just saying, I'm judging the book by the cover, and the cover don't look too good.
Emails can be linked to their domestic IP addresses. Nancy Guthrie was a woman of routine, a woman of trust.
There you go. Was again. Now I know it's somebody wrote this script and put it in the robot's head, but we keep hearing was.
The open back door and the disabled cameras suggest she may have even welcomed her visitor that morning. The tragedy of this case is not just the disappearance of a vulnerable grandmother. It is the possibility that the very people she relied on were the ones who choreographed her exit. The DNA results are pending. The digital log.
Think about something for a moment. Let's say it's the son-in-law and he goes and kidnaps her. The only thing he could do would be to give her back if he gets the ransom and disappear for life. Otherwise, he's got to snuff her if she has seen him and his accomplices. Because even if she didn't see him, you got to worry about the other guy or the other two guys singing like a canary when they get to prison. They get that. You know what I'm saying?
Logs are being mapped. The 50 yards of missing evidence are being reconstructed inch by inch. The investigation is no longer a search for a stranger in the dark. It is a determined pursuit of a truth that lies much closer to home. We will see what the evidence reveals when the next court motion is filed. The story isn't over. It's just getting quiet. And in a case like this, the silence is usually where the truth is hidden.
So we'll see. I believe that we have Jonathan back with us, Jonathan Hunt. He's in Tucson on the ground. Can you tell us anything about this message?
All we know at this point, Jillian, is the confirmation from
message.
The sheriff's office here, Pima County Sheriff's, which we're at right now, is that they are, quote, aware of this message and they are actively looking into it. They're trying to establish its authenticity. A lot of questions, obviously. One, and a very important question will be, is this message from the same person or persons as the previous messages, the 3 ransom notes?
Am I going to prison with them for retransmitting the Fox
TV
News
stations?
feed?
Is it from the same person? And they'll be able to look at the content of this message and look at things like the writing style, etc. See if there are similarities. They'll obviously be looking at the email address, although that may have been changed if this person or persons are trying to cover their tracks, obviously. So there's a lot they'll want to look at. Now, what we and the Guthrie family certainly would hope is that this new message, if it is authentic, is a response to those video pleas we've seen from the Guthrie siblings, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron, for the kidnapper or kidnappers to get in touch directly with them and to send proof of life, to show them, the family, that Nancy Guthrie
Nobody's
is
returning.
alive, that
Nobody's
these
responding
people,
to a
this
plea.
person
That ain't right.
has Nancy Guthrie, and that
That's a
they
pipe
are
dream, but
genuinely those who have her right now and can therefore return her. So they'll be looking at this very closely now. Given that the sheriff's office has put out this announcement that they are aware of this message, we would expect more detail from them soon. But this is clearly
who received the
potentially,
message?
and I have to emphasize potentially there, a very significant development if it is a response to those pleas to show proof of life. Gillian.
Jonathan, it's Kennedy. I have a quick question. What form are these messages taking? Are they handwritten? Are they electronic? What do we know about them?
All the messages received so far, and remember, they have not been completely 100% authenticated up until now, but the 3 ransom notes were all sent via email, and it was an untraceable email address, or at least untraceable in the early going. The FBI obviously has a lot they can bring to bear here. They may be able to track down the source, but on the initial look at that, it was an untraceable email. We assume that this new message is also sent by email. We don't have that confirmed by the sheriff yet, but the very fact, I think, that they are putting out an announcement saying we are aware of a message, if it came in and was clearly another evil kind of hoax message, I don't think they would have bothered to put out a notice to all of us saying we are aware of a new message. So it would seem there are maybe some indications.
This has the smell of, we have information, but we're not ready to give it out yet for obvious reasons. The press doesn't need to tell us anything that will compromise the case.
Is potentially a very serious lead if it is a response to those heartfelt pleas from the Guthrie family for the kidnapper or kidnappers to show them that Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, is alive. Kennedy?
Hello there,
Thank you, Jonathan.
2066.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Well, all you wanted was proof of life. And we don't know if this message was proof of life, but this is the best development that we've had so far. And it gives you hope that Miss Guthrie might be alive, because as of today, we had no communication aside from these other emails, which only said we will not be communicating
If
at
they
all.
find her alive, that's going to be
Deadline 1,
incredible.
deadline
I hope
2,
they do,
that's
obviously,
it.
but that will be incredible.
Send the money. So this is a huge development. They were in the position up until now that they were going to have to send 20, 40, 60, $100 million to an account without any guarantee they were going to get their mom back. And so now you're actually in a negotiation.
There's a
This thing
Riley
is legitimate.
2066.
And so for the Guthrie family, this has to
Guessing
be
how to say that name.
a huge, huge relief. It's not over yet, but it does give a glimmer of hope. And that's kind of all you're riding on right now is just hope and adrenaline. Hopefully, we're all praying.
But at the same time, Jesse, if you're the person who's taken her and you have all these millions of dollars on the line right now, why not just shoot a quick video? Why leave it up?
Because you're going to shoot a video and then it's going to expose intelligence that can be harvested by the FBI. And you.
See, this is the part that bothers me. We're basically making stuff up now, and then idiots like me are listening to it and talking about it.
And make the Guthrie family send the money. Because really, this is all just about money and life. And this is high stakes. And Harvey made a great point. It doesn't necessarily seem like the kidnappers targeted Savannah Guthrie in particular. You look at her, she's in New York. Let's find where her mom is. Oh, she's in Tucson. No. By the way things are and the timing of we're going to get this woman back within a certain time period, and the fact that they sent these letters to local Tucson stations, NTMZ in LA, shows you that this might have a Tucson, Arizona kind of location. And so that's kind of where everything's focused on right now. And I don't know. I think the sheriff really needed this break.
To that point,
I wouldn't really call it a break yet.
Well, I think there's something obvious that no one mentions is that it makes it really hard to pay a ransom when you make.
You don't
it
think
that
it's
public.
about the money? What do you
That's why I
think's
think
going
this is
on?
a red herring. You know, it's like if I kidnap Jesse Waters, I'm not going to send a message to Fox. I'm going to send it to your parents and go like, look, we're going to handle this. I wouldn't go. I mean, why would you send it to TMZ?
Yeah.
Why would you send it to if you really wanted the money? There would have been a much easier way to do it than make it public. The only reason why you make it public is because it's a distraction and it's a red herring.
I did hear one analyst saying that
We got to
they
knock the old
maybe,
lady out before she
because of
talks.
the way they sent those messages to other news outlets and entertainment outlets in the U.S., like maybe the kidnappers are foreigners who are not as familiar with the
Ah.
landscape.
But they said the language within, and they could have used AI to write the notes,
write
but
it,
they
yeah.
said that
There's
Hart
AI
says on
again.
Hannity that the language is impeccable, and he said it's layered, and which makes you think that there is a logical progression within the note itself, and also it's not short.
Real quick, Jonathan Hunt, I understand, is getting some more information about who is receiving this latest message that the family is hoping will be authenticated. What can you tell us, Jonathan?
Yeah, Jillian, one of the local TV stations here has confirmed that they were one of those, at least, that received this new message. CBS 13 News, KOLD. Now, interestingly, they were one of the stations locally that received those original ransom notes now, and they appear to have got this follow-up note. And to Greg's point about why would you send these to TV stations? Why would you send it to TMZ? You look at this, it could be something as simple as these people or this person does not have Savannah Guthrie's email address. I mean, she's a celebrity figure. She might be very careful about who can contact her. So it might be something as simple as that. So you want to get a message.
Yeah, we're going to prison for
you
streaming this
send
Fox
it to
News that
two of
long,
the
that's for sure.
Local TV stations, the original ransom notes, and to a network that is seen nationally like TMZ. That might explain it. There's a million other theories out there as to why that might have been done. But the bottom line is that the Guthrie family obviously saw and heard those emails. They read them. The FBI has said they are taking them seriously, those original ransom notes. And now we wait to get more detail on what this second message may be. And again, the first task for the FBI is to try to check its authenticity, the first task for the FBI and the Sheriff's Department, and to see if they genuinely believe that this follow-up message is from the same people that sent those original ransom notes. If it is, perhaps there is a sliver of hope that we can all cling to tonight, that they are responding to the pleas for proof of life. Perhaps they are. And this is a huge perhaps, obviously, but looking for a silver lining in this awful, awful week for the Guthrie family. Perhaps this is this new message offering proof of life. We can't jump to any conclusions about its authenticity, about where it came from, about who may have Nancy Guthrie.
Now, they didn't say anything about what would give proof of life. It's just a message. What is the proof of life? Or are they still speculating?
As he put it, is tens of millions of square miles. It doesn't narrow it down much, guys.
Jonathan, so just to crystallize this for viewers, there were 3 stations that received this ransom note. You had KGUN, KOLD, you had TMZ. The person who received this message was one of the 2 local stations. TMZ and the other local station have yet to confirm whether they received the same message. It strikes me as there being 2 options. Number 1, this could be an imposter, and we know there was a fake ransom note previously, and that person's being prosecuted. Could be an imposter. But number 2, this could be the proof of life that the family has sought, and proof of life can come in the form of a video, a word that the family had together, a detail that is privately known, not publicly known. And finally, I would just say, they said the floodlight was part of the way that they authenticated the first ransom note. Still unclear if it's an actual ransom, but the floodlight was on the outside of the house. We have a picture of it. So this could be a private detail that maybe only the family would know. All conjecture at this point.
Yeah, I just want to correct one thing you said. The floodlight was, you said the floodlight was how they authenticated the original note.
The
They
sheriff
have
said.
not 100% authenticated the note. No, they have not 100% authenticated at all. They are still looking into whether those original ransom notes are actually real from somebody who may actually have Nancy Guthrie. But this follow-up note is a hopeful sign that perhaps they are about to get proof of life. If all of this is real, there is still a chance that all of this is from some evil hoaxer. But we hope it's real. We hope it's proof of life.
All right, Jonathan, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you for jumping in with us. We will continue to monitor the.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
They are not given enough details about what was in the note to even speculate it that it might be proof of life. Let's see. Come on now. My computer's kind of locking up a little bit right now. Shoot.
The blood on the porcelain tile near the
No, we don't
front
wanna see
door
that
was
again.
the first contradiction.
I had a good story popped up there, but the computer locked up.
Welcome to TMZ Live. There is some interesting information, not just about Nancy Guthrie, but about Savannah Guthrie. So there's been a lot of talk about how does she come back to the Today Show as long as things are unresolved. And the reality is, and our law enforcement sources are saying this, that this case could be unresolved for months, even years, before they find Nancy Guthrie. That is just a stark reality right now. The FBI does not have any solid leads, nor does the Pima County Sheriff's Office. They don't. And
I bet that piece was recorded before that letter was found or received. What does this say? 11 hours ago, yeah. You don't know shit, Harvey. Seven hours ago.
So, Sheriff, it's been 30 days since Nancy Guthrie went missing. Are investigators any closer to finding the suspect or suspects?
I think the investigators are definitely closer. I think that you probably won't want to hear this, but we're kind of relieved that the media is moving on to other things, because for us, we got a lot of intel, a lot of leads, but now it's time to just go to work. Allow my team to do what they do, investigate crimes. They are working hard. I've said this from the beginning. I have full faith, full confidence. They're going to solve this.
So, Sheriff, it's been 30 days since Nancy Guthrie went missing.
Well, there's just, I'm just reading through some stuff. There is nothing here.
On my channel, I break down a lot of things on my channel and stuff, or on my TikTok channel.
Okay.
And I explain a lot of things. And man, it looks like a suppressor in the holster on the front.
Yeah, it
Look at it.
It looked like a Ruger 22 to me. I mean, I'm no gun expert.
That's just more speculation. Just, I didn't want to get on there and just regurgitate everything. I was looking to see. I hadn't looked at the news all day. I've been busy. I was hoping to see something new, and I saw something about that note, but nothing with enough detail to tell me anything, which is fine because they can't compromise the case. But
of the people there, let's hold Don Lemon aside, did in fact seem to break that law. We can again disagree with the law, but the law is what it is, and they seem to have broken it.
I don't think you can lump Don Lemon in that, because Don Lemon
agree.
says I wasn't a protester, I was a reporter.
And he was.
It is a really profitable time period. And that didn't work, and Paris had, and they're suing for passed the bar exam, so it's not an issue. I think Ray J. scored.
that's just the whole TMZ issue. It's not specifically about Nancy Guthrie. Here we go. This from
If you have one
44
of
minutes.
these, your home's ready for an upgrade. Get this.
Come on now.
Ashley Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. It is Monday, March the 2nd, which officially makes this day 30 in the Nancy Guthrie case. And I know I didn't drop an episode yesterday or on Saturday. I'll be honest with you, there were very few developments over the weekend.
Yeah.
There was also an attack on Iran, and I think the country's, their attention just seemed to go elsewhere for a hot minute, but I know that you're still here, and I did gather a lot of information, which I'm going to give you right now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe, please. It does me a big solid. If you're new, hi. Thanks for being here. It's good to meet you. So let's just dive right in. I've got some big news that's extremely, well, it's sad, but it is, I suppose, not unexpected. I talked to one of my law enforcement sources who's associated with the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and I learned from that law enforcement source that the Pima County Sheriff's Department enlisted one of their partner agencies and gave them the signal sniffer to take to a neighboring county and look for a body. This is several days ago that this apparently happened, and that neighboring agency did take that signal sniffer and did go out into the desert to a specific location. I'll get to what kind of
Signal sniffer. Are they talking about a dog?
specific location and what they used.
I was reading something on my phone and I missed what she said.
To find the location in a minute. But they did do that, and obviously they did not find Nancy at this place. But it is sad to hear that this was one of the directives. Please go to this specific location in the desert in a neighboring county and look for a body. So there was some intelligence that investigators came across that led them to go on that mission. And what's really interesting about the timing of it was that it was just one day after news broke that the Pima authorities were using the signal sniffer in Pima County. And I think you might remember when Brian Enton was reporting and he said, there's this helicopter above me as I'm doing this live report. And it came out later that that was a helicopter using the signal sniffer. And I think Brian mentioned that they had it on the rudder. I'm not sure if they did or if they were holding it, whatever it was. The search in the neighboring county came right after the Pima County.
Signal
And I
sniffer
thought,
on
well,
the
wow,
helicopter
that's
smelling for a
awfully
body?
quick, because
What
I
the
would have
hell?
thought that they'd spend many days with that signal sniffer in Pima County. I
I'm
mean, Pima
confused.
County is
Are
the
they talking about the
size of
signal
Rhode
from
Island
her
and Connecticut
pacemaker?
combined.
What the
It
hell
is
is she talking
huge.
about?
But maybe this was an immediate piece of information. They needed to go check it out, and then they brought the signal sniffer back into the Pima area and continued their searches. I don't know that. It stands to reason they wouldn't just search for a day. They would continue to use that technology. And if you missed that episode, I'll just quickly summarize that the signal sniffer is technology that, and this is my talk to me like I'm 5 language, but effectively sends out a handshake and looks for an advertisement coming from the ground, from Nancy's very specific address of her pacemaker. That pacemaker is continually sending out.
Okay, that makes sense. When they first said that, I'm sorry, I thought they were talking about a cadaver dog. That makes more sense. Got a device on a helicopter trying to hear that pacemaker, even if she's somewhere and that pacemaker's still running unless somebody ripped it out and took the battery out. She's on this planet somewhere, dead or alive, with that pacemaker, and if they get close enough, they can find that signal. So that's interesting.
Advertisements looking to connect with its devices, right? Because it got separated from its devices when she was taken from her home. And it's still sending out those advertisements. Hey, hello, where are you? And this sniffer comes down and searches for that address saying, I'm right here, and then connects and can find where that pacemaker is. That's what the signal sniffer was doing.
Copter's too
I hope
high,
that made
huh?
sense. It sounded awfully sophomoric, however. And for those of you who think, well, what if Nancy died? Then that's just a fool's errand. Well, the pacemaker doesn't die.
Yeah.
The pacemaker is electronic, and it will go on for years, according to the people who actually make the signal sniffer technology and who know about the actual technology of the pacemakers. So
now you got to wonder if the kidnapper was smart enough to know that, I hate to say this, and remove that pacemaker and destroy it. Boy, that's a lot to digest in the brain.
I think it's just an incredible possibility that might still yield something in this investigation. But it's just fascinating because let me tell you what the Pima folks told the neighboring agency to do. They gave them cell tower coordinates to go into the desert. that specific area in the desert in the neighboring county. For purposes of protecting sources, I can't tell you what county, but I know what county. I just can't tell you, unfortunately. And so, yeah, they were given cell tower coordinates, and they took the sniffer out there, and obviously it did not yield anything, which is very sad.
Yeah,
What's also hard...
you're supposed to think that stuff to yourself, but not actually say it, but we all think that stuff, but don't want to admit it. In any case, a month is a long time for her to still be alive. Of course, we all hope she is alive, but man, I never thought of that until this part about somebody removing that pacemaker. That's horrible.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. First, go to
reporting and when you're investigating a story like Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is that eventually one must change from a rescue mission to a recovery mission. And there is no definition for when that time is. When a ferry capsizes, of course, we know that the search mission turns to a recovery mission fairly quickly, because how long can you survive in the water? But in a mission like this, it's a little less defined. So it's very hard to be talking out loud about searching for a body. But we know that law enforcement with Pima...
She just mentioned talking out loud, which is, I said, we're supposed to think this bad stuff privately.
Was doing that, at least in this one circumstance. Who knows if they're doing it in other circumstances, but we are now in week 5. We hit the 1 month mark yesterday. And again, this is Monday, March 2nd, day 30. It's entirely probable there are these 2 parallel investigations ongoing. One to find Nancy alive and one to potentially find Nancy dead. And even Savannah has acknowledged in some of her Instagrams that she may no longer be with us.
So when I go to prison for restreaming these broadcasts, y'all are going to have to come see me in prison. Just ask for Billy Clyde Tuggle.
And to that, I have some news for you today I will get to in a moment. But finally, Savannah and her family have come to the flower display that neighbors and friends and mourners and those who are just connected to the story have left out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home. I'll show you that in just one moment. But not before I tell you also that the news that I just gave you about the signal sniffer going out
one person
to
jumped
the desert
off,
in the
got
neighboring
4
county
left.
came one day after.
Put some stuff in the chat there so we
were
know who
told
you are.
that those images of the offender on the doorbell cam were actually on 2 different days. The significance of that is that the guest that I'm going to talk to in this episode is a fantastic guest regarding searching, because that is what she does. That is her entire life, searching. And
one thing we know for sure, there's a Riley 2066 out there somewhere.
Forensic searching and rescue and recovery. But she also happens to be a PhD in psychology. And as she puts it, she gets into the shoes of the bad guy to determine what happened. And that's kind of what we've all been trying to do, right? To figure out what.
I got to admit, she's rambling on and I'm not even paying attention to what they're talking about. That's all we got right now.
What happened to Nancy Guthrie, for God's sake? Who does this? What could they have done? That's what this person does, who you're going to meet. Dr. Tracy Sargent is
Connecticut.
just
I'm in
spectacular
Colorado.
at what she does. She even worked on BTK on that case. But in terms of offender profiling, that news that those images came out on 2 different days was big to her as well, because it sort of changes the dynamic, right? If he was stalking, it changes how Dr. Sargent would look at this crime. So that was big for her. So that's part of the conversation that I have with her as well. Even though it's a couple days old, she wants to talk about the searching, but also that offender change as well. That does make things different. So today was a very big day and a very difficult day for the Guthrie family. And I'm about to show you what they did today when they came down their driveway to leave flowers in that memorial for their mom. It was really heart-wrenching. That's all coming in just a minute. Quick note from my sponsor. Do you remember the first?
Nope, we don't remember. Well, She's just rambling. She's got no data. Let's see what she's talking about, these flowers in the driveway. She's still rambling about her commercial. I went too far. Let me rewind it a little bit.
Came down Nancy Guthrie's driveway, and they had with them yellow flowers and a card. And it was such a sad moment to see them come and take in this makeshift memorial that has been growing right at Nancy's driveway, where her driveway meets the street right near her mailbox. The neighbors began.
Am I wrong? Sometimes when people do these vigils and do all this, it's kind of freaky to me. So I don't know why I feel that way. It just seems kind of freaky. You don't know these people. You know, maybe keep your distance. You don't need to go to the house and leave shit out front. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems kind of freaky. I've always thought that.
You know, putting flowers out, yellow flowers, and then passersby and people from all over Tucson, you know, have come to Nancy Guthrie's home to leave messages and these memorial flowers, and the Guthrie kids and their Annie's husband all came to take a look at it. And it was so sad because you could hear Annie crying very loudly as they were all hugging, and they left their flowers and they left a card. I'll read it for you in a moment, but I just want you to see this moment without any talking over top.
Man, can you even imagine? This would be horrible. It's bad. I hate to keep interrupting that, but it's bad enough when something bad happens, but then you add a month's worth of suspense on top of that. That is horrible.
So as I said, they looked at all the messages that people have left and the flowers they've left. They left their own yellow flowers there. And they left this card. And I want to read this for you. It says, "Mama, we miss you so much. Our hearts are broken. We are standing on ash, on scorched earth. But Mom, though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much. Our best friend, Annie, Tommaso, and Olmo." I don't know who Olmo, maybe one of their children or a pet, or I'm not sure who that is, but.
See, so at what point, they were talking about this earlier, at what point does she go back to her job on TV? You can't stay off for a year. At what point do you go back to your normal life not knowing what has happened? I just can't even fathom that. I can't get my head around that.
That was obviously from Annie and Tommaso. Savannah's not signed on that card. But I will tell you that it was only Fox and News Nation that were there to capture this moment, because the press corps has pretty much vanished from this street out in front of Nancy's house.
Yeah, it's going to fade off now that there's nothing going on at the house. The physical presence will fade off. The details are going to fade off. Now we got the Iran thing going on over there. I think the attention here is going to fade off pretty quick unless we get a new detail like somebody gets arrested.
For lack of interest in the story necessarily, the sheriff put in these extraordinarily oppressive parking restrictions that go out for concentric blocks, right? And so anybody who wants to...
They should have did that from the beginning. What the hell was he thinking about?
Actually see what's happening, cover the story, find out what investigators are doing, find out what families doing, etc. They have to carry all of their gear for a very, very long walk. And don't forget, this is the desert. So they're effectively walking on sort of a dusty road in the middle of the 89-degree weather. and then carrying all their gear for the day. As Brian Enton said to me, I was absolutely exhausted. I felt dehydrated. He'd been there.
That's what we should worry about, this ass clown being dehydrated when, come on now.
All day, because it's not enough time in between live shots to make your way all the way back out to where your car is parked, even though a nice neighbor gave him a driveway. It just isn't very close. You know, they're low.
He had to walk all the way out to his car to get a Perrier out of the cooler in the trunk.
On water, they're low on power. There's no shelter from the oppressive heat. They get under a tent to try to shield themselves from the desert sun. But even then, it's just, it's made it so difficult.
We had 5, we dropped to 2, we got 3. Somebody just
get rid of them by making it painful.
Somebody just dropped in.
So
Welcome.
the other
Leave
issue
a
is
comment.
that on Saturday,
Tell us who you are.
at 2:30 in the morning, we began a war with Iran and here in the.
We're just listening to her ramble about nothing really, no details. She's just rambling, really.
United States, and so the reporters were needed elsewhere, and so that might be part of the reason why all of a sudden there's so few people who were there. Nonetheless, to keep the story alive, Savannah put out another Instagram today, and it's just text. It's not a video, but I'll read it to you. She said, "We feel the love and prayers from our neighbors, from the Tucson community, and from around the country." And she puts a yellow heart. "Please don't stop praying and hoping with us." So just some other stuff that I collected, just news that I collected today and in the last 2 days as well. Michael Ruiz, again, dogged reporter from Fox. He did not leave. He is still there. He and his team captured these images along with News Nation of the Guthrie family coming to the mailbox. He said he also noticed a camera, and I'll read what he said in his tweet. "Just noticed a camera on the way in and out of Annie and Tommaso's neighborhood that I hadn't seen before." Unfortunately, I don't have any other context to that. I don't know if this is a public camera that the city put up. I don't know if it's a neighborhood camera that the neighbors put up together. I don't know what it is, but it's new to Michael Ruiz. He also said that the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have shifted resources as the investigation enters its 5th week. And this is what Michael says. "Sources say that this morning the case was handed off to a task force featuring Pima County homicide detectives and FBI agents." You know, at some point there has to be a drawdown, right? Again, we're going into week 5 now. We are in week 5 now. And at some point, there's still work that needs to be done in Tucson and throughout greater Arizona. And so the 400 agents that we had been told originally were at one point working on this case, they will have to draw down. And so Michael Ruiz is seeing the evidence of that through his sources right now. But also there's a statement that, pretty much tells us that that is what's happening to a degree. This is from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Quote, "This remains an active investigation and will continue until Nancy Guthrie is located or all leads have been exhausted. The Pima County Sheriff's Department is refocusing resources to detectives specifically assigned to this case. As leads are developed and resolved, resource allocation may fluctuate. Pima County Sheriff's Department will maintain a patrol presence in the Guthrie neighborhood." But to that, I will tell you that on Saturday, Michael Ruiz reported that the deputy who had been watching Nancy Guthrie's driveway left. And there had been a couple of other reports saying that it's no longer a constant, a deputy protecting the house. And Matt Finn from Fox reported on Saturday that the Pima County Sheriff's vehicles that have been guarding Nancy's property for weeks might be leaving soon as the house is returned to the family. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, the sheriff told us that they returned the house to the family, or at least they returned the house. It's no longer a crime scene on Monday after the crime, right? Nancy was taken on Sunday morning.
Well, they can't stay there
and
forever.
on Monday evening, it was no longer a crime scene. And we were told that it was, released to the family then. So I'm confused as you are as to why the sheriff is now saying we're releasing it to the family now. And frankly, that's not so much what the sheriff is saying as the.
If there's no law enforcement there and no family living or staying there, now you got to worry about people looky-loos wanting to break in to take pictures and do whatever. That's not a good scenario either way.
The reporters are saying the sheriff has told them. So there's been no actual press release saying that. But as you know, there's been some mixed messages throughout this particular case. Something else that Michael Ruiz noticed, which I thought was really interesting. We reported to you on Friday night that this remarkable moment had sort of percolated out of nowhere, that a neighbor from 2.5 miles away, outside of the 2-mile radius that the police were asking neighbors to look at their ring cam and let them know if there was anything unusual. These guys are 2.5, so half a mile outside the radius. These people told Fox that they spotted 12 cameras on their ring cam that looks right out on the street. And of those 12, one was very, very interesting. It was seen at 2:36 a.m. And that's interesting because it's 8 minutes after Nancy's pacemaker separated from her Apple devices in her home. And it's presumed to be the moment that
That's
she
the
was
one you
taken
need
from
to
her home.
look for.
And this
Come on now.
2.5 mile away home is about a 7-8 minute drive. So that car was very, I mean, gosh, I talked to Maureen O'Connell, from former FBI special agent, who said this could be a deal breaker. This could be everything. She was so happy. And they could even tell they thought that it was a Kia Soul, even though it's such a quick, flash across the dark road. And then we heard a report that an FBI source had told TMZ that it was a dead lead. So to that I say that Michael Ruiz from Fox today says they are reportedly still looking into that ring camera video. I mean, this was a back road out of Nancy's neighborhood, right? And
if they know something about that, they are not going to release it to the public until afterwards. They don't. I did a video the other day about the press does not need to tell us everything if it's going to compromise the investigation. Same thing goes with stuff that goes in acts of war and whatnot. We don't need to know everything until afterwards.
I don't know the neighborhood really well, but it leads to East River Road, which is a major cross street. And from what I do understand about the neighborhood is that if you wanted to drive away and avoid cameras and major intersections, you might take this route, So very interesting to hear Michael Ruiz from Fox say, still looking into ring camera video taken on that back road 2.5 miles away from Nancy's house. To me, that's heartening. I'm glad. Maybe that will go somewhere, but so far, here we are 4 days later, and the police have not come to us with the white Elantra moment, be on the lookout for this car. Let us know if you've seen this car. They haven't told us be on the lookout for anything yet. So watch this space. Okay, Max Gordon. Fox has been doing some really good work on this story. I should tell you, I learned early on that they sent roughly 30 people down to Tucson to cover this story. So understandably, they're doing an incredible job. And Brian Enton is doing like a spectacular job with a fraction of that, so yay, Brian. But Max Gordon from Fox, I believe he's located in LA. I think he's based in.
I think this is her own YouTube channel, not an official cable channel or network channel. I think this is her YouTube, whatever you want to call it.
LA. But Max said this on Twitter. I just interviewed Luke Daly and his mother, Mary Chapman Daly. Luke's car and their home were raided by law enforcement on February 13th in connection to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Neither was arrested, and their lawyer says he's been unable to see the search warrant. I don't know why that's nuts to me. I mean, okay, I get it. Everything's been sealed. We can't get anything. We can't get anywhere. We tried to see the warrant when they towed Annie's car. That warrant was sealed as well. According to Megan Kelly and her team who tried to get it, they were told nope. And I've got something I want to mention about that in a moment. But Brianna Whitney from Arizona Family also interviewed Ms. Daly. And Ms.
Think about why in the hell would law enforcement give the press details about the car when the investigation is still going on. This is my point. They shouldn't do that. That would be wrong.
Daly told Brianna that the police were in her home for 6 hours. She had no idea why they were there and had no idea that there was some connection to her son, who'd been arrested, not far away. He had just gone for food. He'd been not arrested. He'd been detained and cuffed in a parking lot with.
That sounds like the Range Rover at the Culvers.
This silver Range Rover.
Yeah.
Just a few blocks away. But listen to this incredible interview that Brianna Whitney did for Arizona Family.
We have got to the point where literally anybody.
I was in the SWAT vehicle, and they went through my house and went through everything and tore everything, broke my. If a door was locked, they would break it open to go see what was in there. There really wasn't anything in there, but it was pretty upsetting.
Well, and it's one thing to come to you and say, do you have any video or anything like that? It's another to detain you and search your house with a search warrant. Did they tell you why?
I guess I assumed, because I lived close by or something, but I just said I'd do anything to, if we could find some clues that might help, but I don't think there's going to be anything in here.
So when they detained you, did you know that this was related to also them investigating Luke?
I don't remember the details, but this Ashley Banfield, who we're watching her channel, she released something, I can't remember what it was, that was so wrong. And she said she had a source and she had to backtrack and retract that comment. I wish I could remember what that was.
No.
You had no idea?
No, I wasn't thinking this was about Luke. I found out it was also about Luke, but initially, no, I was thinking it was all about Nancy Guthrie and finding her and whatnot.
So that is Mary Chapman Daly. And Brianna Whitney also spoke with Luke Daly, her son, and he had this to say about his experience.
Many people have believed that you are the person on the surveillance video, the abductor, the masked person. Is that you?
It's not me. I don't see the resemblance of it looking like me. But
brown eyes.
I have nothing to do with this case.
That's all you can
so
see through that ski mask, his eyeballs.
I noticed 2 sheriff vehicles following me. They pulled me over at the Culvers right there.
You do have the tattoo on the wrist to
asked me
look
to get out
at,
of the car. It didn't tell me what it was about. So they had me cuffed in the back of a cop car, detained. I was asking, what am I being detained for? And they wouldn't tell me anything. They just said that the detectives would be there to talk to me. And once I saw FBI and all the other cars start pulling in, I'm like, oh, this is probably about the Guthrie case. I'm like, this should be easy. I have nothing to do with this, so it should be not a big deal to clear my name and move on. But the whole time during the questioning,
I don't know about this guy, but
more of
the guy who was trying to disarm the camera,
for them to
there was a tattoo showing underneath the sleeve.
All the dates.
All you got to do is look at this guy's arm.
Things like that.
Rule him out.
I'm like, all you'd have to do is look at my phone and see my location. It was nowhere near anywhere or have any connection to this. But still, it was tough, being there. I don't trust the FBI to the extent that I'm thinking that there's pressure on this case and they want to find the person. So the whole time while I'm sitting in the back of the cop car, I'm panicking, thinking that I'm going to be framed for this, or they're trying to pin this on me somehow. They searched Range Rover. They towed my Range Rover, did all DNA testing or whatever, and then gave it back to me. Took my cell phone. I've had no way to get a hold of anyone, which is probably a good thing because everyone's looking at me like I'm this person that I'm not.
Wow, can you imagine?
So it's been rough.
So that is really fascinating. They towed Luke Daly's silver Range Rover on a flatbed, covered up the license plate so we could never see it. They towed it under a warrant and processed it and then must have determined that it is not of evidentiary value because they returned it to him. When you take something under a warrant, Fourth Amendment, which, protects Americans and people living here against an unreasonable search and seizure from the government, when you take something under warrant, if it proves not to have evidentiary value, you return it. You have to. It's on the judge. The judge is the person who signed off on it. And so the judge is like, yeah, if you're not keeping that for the investigation, you give it back, or my head's on a, stake. So what's interesting is that last we checked, Annie Guthrie's car had not been returned. And the sheriff had told Fox it's part of the investigation. We have not had an update today, and again, today is Monday, March 2nd, as to whether her car's been returned. But it would be really weird that they would give Luke Daly's car back, which was seized after Annie's car was seized, and not give Annie's car back. I'm still trying to make heads or tail of that. Okay, so what I wanted to mention to you about was this news that I broke at the top of this episode, that my law enforcement source told me that the partner agencies of the Pima County Sheriff were asked to go into the desert in a neighboring county, take the signal sniffer, and go with these direct cell tower coordinates and look for, quote unquote, a body. It did not yield Nancy Guthrie, but what took them there? I mean, that is the big mystery and fascinating. So I called Tracy Sargent, Dr. Tracy Sargent. Tracy has been involved with, between 2,000 and 3,000 missing persons cases. So she's been at this game for a long time. And the cases are similar or slightly similar to the Nancy Guthrie case because, of course, there's just nothing like Nancy's case, right? There's just nothing. Her outfit is called Forensic Investigations and Analysis. Tracy has 3 cadaver dogs in her arsenal, along with those years and years of skills. And she has the added benefit of being a PhD in psychology. So, like I said, she says she puts herself into the bad guy's shoes and then tries to find out what he would do based on the knowledge and the education and the training and the information, especially the forensic information on this particular case. And so that's why I wanted to talk to her, because the signal sniffer was sent to these coordinates in the desert in a neighboring county. Why, Tracy, why? And what else are they doing? But also the notion, because it had happened right at the same time, that these 2 photographs of the perpetrator on the ring cam, all the law enforcement sources have told us they come from different days. So this guy was casing the place. If that's true, then he's checking out the place he's going to, target in the days to come. So I wanted to talk to Dr. Sargent about the parallel tracks as this investigation changes in numbers, right? Fluctuates. And there's this task force. I wanted to ask her about the parallel investigations, how you look for a person you're hoping to still rescue, but how you look for a person when you think they may be dead. And before I do that, a quick note from my sponsor. Next time you're in the kitchen, grab.
No more sponsors, lady.
Search the entire world. Search for Nancy Guthrie. Now that we are in them at Walmart, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and other major retailers nationwide. Box by box. So here is my conversation with Tracy, and it's super fascinating given the fact that now, again, we're into week 5. Tracy, talk to me a little bit about the methodology behind the large-scale picture of how to search for Nancy Guthrie now that we are in week 4. You've mentioned something about high probability areas that should come first. What does that mean?
Yes, we certainly can't search the entire world for someone. So what we want to do is essentially focus on high probable areas first. What does that mean by high probable areas?
Bodies of water. It kind of sucked. I was golfing Sunday and I pulled out my phone and looked at the news, and there was a prompt from TikTok. So I opened it, and there was a story that said they found her body on the lake. And obviously that was fake.
essentially where the person was last seen, or any evidence or any technology that leads us to a particular area of interest. That's a high probable area, and that's where we want to focus
she
those
does ramble.
resources. Essentially start at ground zero and then work our way out from there.
Being that you've got a PhD in psychology and
She
you
probably gets
apply
paid
that
pretty good amount
to
to
your
ramble like
business
that, though.
of search
She's
and
on-
rescue.
See her on Paw
What
Patrol
does this
Live once
newest
in a while and
news
some other
that
shows.
came out about the fact that this perpetrator was casing? He was there before the night that Nancy disappeared. What does that enter into the picture in terms of how you put yourself in his shoes and then decide what may have come next?
Absolutely. In all of these situations, the motive is key here. So what is his motive? And now that we know that he was there previously, it's obvious that he's targeted this home, and we have to figure out what his motive, not only for targeting the home, but also why that home interests him. Is it because there's a lone female that lives there by herself? Is it because it's an older female that lives by herself? Is it something inside the home that he's interested in? What is that motive? He obviously is there for a particular reason. He's targeted this home, he's reconning it, and he's certainly fully expected to come back and commit whatever crime that he had in mind.
Yeah, you got to wonder, was any mention of a safe or any valuables outside of the normal stuff you have in your house?
So putting the psychology into why someone has come in and how they have decided to come in, what can you extrapolate from that adds to the strategy of how to search for where Nancy may have been taken?
So we have to look at, again, the motive. We can theorize what that might be, the psychological part of this.
Had the safe been compromised or anything?
And why he's there. So let's say, for example, he decided to stake this house to steal something. And let's theorize that maybe he was surprised by Miss Guthrie and wasn't expecting her to be there. Maybe he was staking it out to see if somebody was there, see their routine, and thinking, oh, if I...
It sure seems like somebody went there to get her, and they knew a little bit about the environment one way or another. Whether if it was that son-in-law that they're blaming or friend of the family, something, who knows? Seems like an inside job, and somebody knew where the cameras were, and it's like somebody knew too much. They knew to get rid of the watch that's running the pacemaker. I mean, you're going to know that you kidnap somebody. Oh, we better get rid of the watch because of the pacemaker. I don't know.
I come back at the house at this time. There's not going to be anybody there. But in this particular situation, unfortunately, she was there, and perhaps she surprised him. And now he's having to deal with a situation that he wasn't planning on dealing with. So now it's a matter of maybe panic, what do I do? And then just out of anxiety and adrenaline,
yes,
he's dealing with a situation he had not
sense.
planned for.
Nothing's obvious.
So you have to look at from the perspective of what is he going to do with her? Where would
I bank on the fact that we don't know everything they know. They're not telling us all the details. As I said, they shouldn't tell us. There's more to it. We'll find that out someday.
he take her? He's in a panic. He wasn't planning on doing this. And then you have to look at the situation of just physically her medical condition, her fear, and things like that. How is he going to take care of her?
But you think about it, the United States is not a place that has a lot of kidnaps for ransom and whatnot. I know they do this a lot in Mexico, and I know that they go to the Formula One race in Mexico. Those drivers are heavily guarded because kidnappings are a thing down there. Not here. What the hell's happening here? It just doesn't make sense. Like you said, it's a very strange case.
Why did he take her? And in this situation, we have to theorize maybe because she could identify him. And now, again, he wasn't planning on taking her. So there's a lot of psychological situations going on in this individual that maybe he didn't plan for. And he's really going by the hip of just trying to deal with this situation and, minute by minute and day by day.
If that's the case, I mean, it certainly could be another whole theory altogether, and they abound on the internet, the theories of what may have happened and why and the motives. But I want to go back to the high probable areas, because given this news that my source has told me about, that partner agencies have been engaged now to use the signal sniffer and search in a remote area of the desert in a neighboring county using coordinates. What does that tell you?
Gosh, that would be incredible if that's the situation. That would really be a game changer in this. To be able to lead us to a specific area, to take resources there, whatever might be needed. And those resources could be varied. And let's say,
I haven't heard anybody's suggestion lately that she might be in Mexico. They were doing that for a while, and I haven't heard that for a bit.
if she's alive, that's certainly a number of resources that we want to bring in. And unfortunately, because of the extended time frame, she's been missing now for 4 weeks. So we have to look at the possibility maybe she's not alive any longer. So now you have to bring in other resources to utilize in that situation. And again, the signal will at least pinpoint an area that we can focus on and take those resources, whatever might be needed. And again, search those areas, and they'll tell us 2 things. They'll tell us where something is and something isn't. Is there evidence? Is Nancy there? Is there something else that will be helpful in this case to move it forward? But due to the fact that they've at least identified an area to check, that's going to be extremely helpful in this situation.
And I wish I knew what led to
the fact that they're not saying where they got that information to look for a body in a certain location. I'm surprised they even released the fact that they did look for the body with that sniffer.
Those coordinates. And I don't have that information, but it would be fascinating, especially as far out as a neighboring county.
You can only imagine the vast amount of information that we don't know, whether it's relevant or irrelevant. They've got thousands of tips and tricks and videos and camera footage and license plate readers. It's just a massive amount of information, and maybe none of it's viable, but they know stuff they're not telling us. That's for sure.
But and I keep coming back to the high probable areas, because if you're looking, in the middle of the desert, there are some limitations to what bad guys can do and what they can get to.
Lose 45 pounds and become unrecognizable.
I'm sick of this Tai Chi guy too.
Absolutely. So what we have to do from a psychology perspective, human behavior, and just the pure logistics of doing something. So
looks like somebody just popped in and leave a chat.
It's identified in an area. So now we have to consider theorizing that perhaps he took Nancy out in that area, or even some kind of evidence. Probably he's not going to walk out in that distance and, far away. So you have to look at, all right, how would a vehicle get in there? Is there some areas where there's a road, or there's some routes that would be viable for a vehicle to travel through? So that's going to narrow the area considerably. So then from there is that logistically, once he locates an area, is it an area that maybe attracts him to go, or maybe he's familiar with, that he can go there, and then logistically, can he walk a certain distance? Let's say either walking somebody out into the desert, or even carrying someone out into the desert. With all due respect, someone that is dead weight, whether they're unconscious or deceased, that's actually quite difficult to do, no matter how strong or big you are. The dead weight of someone is something you just can't carry some distance. So that's going to be very helpful as well.
Everybody is so reluctant to make that horrible assumption that she's already gone.
If we look at it from, again, when we search these areas, we truly want to walk into the shoes of these bad guys. What not only would they do, but also just as importantly, what can they do?
Well, take me to the wood as opposed to what can they do, because that high probable area makes sense when you say, if you can't drive there, you're sure not going to walk 4 or 5 miles with, like you said, 150 or so some odd pounds. But what about what would they do? Tell me about the psychology of that and how that enters into the way you approach search.
Yes. So again, when I go out there with my dogs or with other investigators to search an area, I truly walk in the shoes of the individual, check the area out, what interests them here. And one of the things we recognized and what I have seen over the years is that when somebody drives in, let's say a 1-lane road, interestingly enough, almost without exception, even if there's more people, more than one person in the car, oftentimes we have...
Drived in? Did you catch that? Someone drived in?
Found what we're looking for, whether it's the person or evidence on the driver's side of how they drive in. Then
because it's opposite?
Correct, yes. Even if we have multiple people in the car, because oftentimes the driver is the leader and they take the person out of the car from the driver's side and then take them into the woods. On the flip side of that, let's say on the driver's side, there is a big mountain that's 1,000 foot high. Well, that's certainly going to alter their behavior to say, you know what, here's this obstacle here. We need to consider somewhere else. Let's say on the passenger side of where the vehicle is, we need to go out in that direction. So there is a method to this madness. And again, looking at the topography, what attracts them to that area, why would they go this side and not that side? So there are a number of variables and we approach it strategically, but we go back when you say the high probable areas. Let's say there's tire tracks, there's some kind of disturbance in the area, theorizing this is where they parked or where they were. We start there and then work our way out.
For lay people like me.
So the job that she's talking about doing, she owns this company with 3 cadaver dogs and blah, 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 all that. Whatever she's talking about, whatever she has, the FBI has that, all that. So where does she come into play? Who hires her? What is she?
You think about the county. Pima County is the size of Connecticut and Rhode Island combined. And that's just one county. There are all the surrounding counties, in Arizona, northern Arizona, eastern, southern, or not southern, but western. It seems like it's searching for a needle in a haystack. Again, to the untrained eye. Is it?
It is, yes.
Ashley, it can be. It's amazing to me after working some of these cases with the advancements in technology, with cell phones, with cameras, flock systems, all of those things, even social media, how one person can vanish without a trace. And I will go back to 2 cases that I'm working right now, that those individuals, we actually know exactly where they were, why they were there, when they were there, what they did, and to this day, we still have no idea where they are. So it is not only a needle in a haystack, but sometimes it can be vanish without a trace situation. Even again, with all the technology that we have nowadays. It's an incredible, insurmountable challenge. And unfortunately, Ashley, it's not like the movies. It's really not.
Yeah,
I wished it was.
for sure.
But in these situations, it really just goes back to not only doing the investigations and having
Criminal Minds would solve this in 42 minutes.
a strategic approach to these things, but it comes down to just dogged hard work and, quite frankly, some good luck as well.
I mean, you've done between 2,000 and 3,000 cases, so you are the best person to ask this. When do the authorities who are directing this entire investigation and search, when do they transition from a search for Nancy to a recovery to find Nancy and potentially Nancy's body?
You know, Ashley, that's a tough one. And it's something that is really difficult to transition, not only for the authorities, but certainly the families. And with all respect and consideration to the Guthrie family and all of her friends in the community as well. We as investigators always want to approach it from the standpoint that someone is alive until we know otherwise. However,
just answered the question. We know you don't want to come right out and say she's gone. Answered the question.
The reality is, as time passes, and now that we're in week 4,
this records conversations better.
To be considered that, are we in a situation where it's a recovery instead of a rescue mission?
Is it a parallel? Is it a parallel investigation, meaning at a certain point, an additional line of attack takes up position, and that is the potential of a recovery while the rescue is continuing?
I think I saw something that said 90% of all missing cases are solved in a week and 60% are solved in 48 hours.
You know, Ashley, that's a great description. A parallel approach is really the best way, especially in these kind of situations, because so much is unknown. But when we look at, she has, advanced age, she's 84 years old. She does have some medical challenges. And then just the time frame itself. Working these parallel is the best description and the best approach in this. We always want to lean into that she's still alive and doing well, but for the due diligence and really wanting to find these answers to so many questions, really looking into and considering it may be a recovery situation. And how does that change things? Well, it changes it in a number of ways. In the beginning, it's certainly the, just a mass wealth of information and trying to figure out what's happening, the motive, where they are, all of those questions going on. Now, if we have to consider recovery in parallel with the investigation of her still being alive, considering other areas that maybe we didn't consider beforehand because we didn't need to, and that would be, let's say, some obvious things like a lake or...
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sitting here thinking about how long they're stretching out this conversation that has no actual information in it.
A pond, or maybe a mine, or a well, or some other areas that may be something, evidence, and unfortunately maybe Miss Guthrie may be concealed in some way, that we have to consider that now in parallel with the hope always that she is still alive.
So regarding concealment, and given the information that I've learned from my source, which is
with modern technology and a few helicopters, as far as there being, the morbid thought again, as far as there being a body out in the desert, you think that would be relatively easy for me to say, but with choppers, doing a grid like you said, you'd think, I don't know if they did any of that.
They're out searching the desert with the signal sniffer based on coordinates, specific coordinates. So many cases that I've worked on, and I'm sure you as well, have been broken by seeing grounds that are recently disrupted. In the J.J. Vallow case, they noticed the ground and, his stepfather's backyard had been disturbed, and lo and behold, they found a grave. Arizona strikes me as a bit of a different animal in terms of the topography and the climate. Can you weigh in on how easy or difficult it is to see recently disturbed terrain?
In comparing when we talk about the Arizona desert and other areas.
So it might be harder to find a grave that was dug in a sand in the middle of the desert, but I don't think it's sand like the Sahara Desert. It's still going to be dirt that you could tell was disturbed.
Yes. Unfortunately, with the sand and we have the wind, if something is disturbed there, the challenge is because of the shifting sands and the wind.
She just shot my theory all to hell.
And things of that sort. The concealment of disturbed dirt can be very difficult in that kind of environment, where you compare it to maybe a wooded environment where the dirt has been disturbed with the leaves and the trees and things like that. It's pretty obvious that something's happened there.
No
So unfortunately,
all, huh?
in the Arizona environment, and I have worked some desert type environments, those themselves can be extremely challenging. Unfortunately, you look at all of the parameters that we have for the investigators from day one, all of it is difficult, from the topography, from not knowing why this person did this, who they are, what happened, why they did it. All of those things just been extraordinarily difficult for the investigators. And I want to emphasize, this really is an extraordinary case in every way. And
I don't recall anything ever like this before.
It's going to take, again, just a tremendous amount of work, tireless hours, endless days to figure this out. But also, I have to go back, some luck, that maybe something will happen, somebody will find something or hear something or know something that will help move this case forward in a much quicker manner and be able to figure out exactly what happened.
Well, to the luck, Arizona is different than, say, Ohio, in that there's a lot of border patrol. There are a lot of boots literally on the ground in southern Arizona that don't exist in other states. And I'm only imagining that does present at least a different metric when it comes to luck.
I would agree with that, Ashley. You know, as they say, more eyes, the better. And certainly the high profile nature of this situation and Miss Guthrie and everything that's being done, and certainly you and other news folks that are sharing all this information, I think it's going to be extremely helpful, and it is going to be a game changer in this case. So,
can you imagine if this is the guy? See my mouse there. Can you imagine if this is the guy? That's the guy they're blaming, Tomas, whatever. Can you imagine if he's the guy that actually did it?
the Border Patrol being so close by, that's certainly going to be helpful as well.
I mean, they're out literally in remote parts of the desert, searching for people who are using the remoteness of the desert to their advantage. So to that end, you mentioned many eyes are better, but the sheriff in this case has discouraged private search parties. I understand what the sheriff is saying. I can understand both sides of this argument. They don't want to interfere with the work of the sheriff and the searchers or whatever might be happening in search and rescue. But I also know that many cases have been solved by crowdsourcing and actually search parties. Casey Anthony's daughter was found by a civilian. Gabby Petito, that was something that a civilian led to. So what is your thought about the fact that many eyes make lighter work or better work versus don't disturb the professionals?
This credit card has an interest rate that's really,
that's
really
the brother,
low.
not the
How
son-in-law?
low? This low. The credit card that's in your wallet right now probably has an interest rate that's really, really high. How high? This high. And it's that high because a credit card is what's called.
Well, Ashley, I think it is a matter of, again, the more eyes, the better. with the understanding of respecting what the investigators are doing and not interfering with those efforts. So there is a balance. Certainly want to embrace everybody's interest in wanting to help, but also understanding that this is a very serious matter and that the investigation is ongoing and extremely active, and not to interfere with those efforts. So I would say folks that do want to help certainly is appreciative, but also respecting the sheriff and the investigators that are involved in this. With that said, I certainly would be more than happy to help. I do have 3 cadaver dogs that are experienced, and, I'm happy to help in any way. But with that, I would not go unless I'm invited and asked, and going through the proper channels to help in this situation. So,
and you've made overtures.
Just show up and unload. Get to it.
Yes, ma'am. I did reach out to the sheriff's office on their website and provided my information to them, that if I can help in any way, I would be more than happy to do that. And I, being a criminal investigator and law enforcement,
and here's my business card,
myself, I still would not go out there unless I'm invited and approved. Because I don't want to interfere with what they're doing. I want to be an asset. I want to work in cooperation and collaboration with them. So I would say the same thing to anyone else, law enforcement or otherwise, to work with the sheriff's office and get that approval to come out there and help.
There's always a push-pull when an emergency situation is in front of us, and that is finding Nancy alive. That's the priority that has been from day one. But there is also the care and consideration to preserve any kind of prosecution once the bad guy, God willing, is found. In that respect, there have been private searchers, average civilians that have come out and searched drainage culverts. I mean, we've got pictures of them finding a black backpack in one of the drainage culverts. I believe it was a Swiss-made backpack with an icon on the back that doesn't appear to be the same one in the doorbell cam. But in that respect, helpful, yes, because at least something was found. Harmful because forget using that in a prosecution, even though they found it on a stick and tried to preserve it best they can until the sheriffs come up.
Ashley, that's a great point, because when we're out there and working these operations, we always have to take in consideration the chain of custody, and the end result is we want this person to be held accountable. And it could be that one piece of evidence that may be disturbed or gathered by someone, all good intentions, but it could influence and hamper the case in a pretty dramatic way, especially when we get to the prosecution part of all of this. And again, we certainly want to find Miss Guthrie and bring her home. So that can certainly take, some, it could hamper with that as well. So you're absolutely right. Good intentions, but we want to make sure these are done correctly and appropriately, because the end result, that once she is found, whether, with all respect, whether she's dead or alive, there's still a lot that has to be done afterwards. That this is just phase 1, and then phase 2, and then we go to another phase 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. So this is just the beginning, not the end or even in the middle. So there's still a lot of work and a lot of questions. And what we're doing now can have a huge impact, both positive and negative. And that applies to anyone that is involved in this case.
As you talk about the phases, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you went as far as I think 6, and we're in phase 1 now. As the investigation, the search, the recovery, the rescue, the recovery moves from phase to phase, and there's a parallel operation, as you mentioned, that will ultimately be working, and it looks like it may be now, based on what my sources reported. What additional equipment would be employed all of a sudden in this secondary phase,
Cadaver dogs.
parallel phase.
Yes, so Ashley, what they've been using now is a lot of the same resources you would continue using. So again, we're talking about the investigators, the ground searchers, drones, all of that. And then
Yeah, I was already thinking drones. Smaller, tighter, lower areas than choppers, cheaper.
even behind the scenes, the technology we talk about, the signals and all of those things that are happening behind the scene that we may not even be aware.
So a lot of technology you can put on drones, infrared, all kinds of different sensing technology.
Aware of. All of that is still happening, and then in addition to other resources.
I'm sure they could configure that drone to look for that pacemaker too.
Let's say divers, sonar, boat operators. We talk about the drones. We continue using those. Certainly search dogs, in this case, cadaver dogs, which technically are human remains detection dogs. So those additional resources that maybe we're not using now, we want to implement now, and again, work in parallel with the ongoing investigations of this parallel, route of her still being alive, and we need to find her, but also look at the possibility of not only her maybe possibly passing away, but also evidence. We talk about the backpack. And some other things. So I would incorporate the divers and sonar and other specialized resources like that, because we've had 4 weeks now thinking like the bad guy.
Infrared,
He's had all of
name it.
this time to get rid of evidence, to try to conceal his actions,
A lot of things they
to
can put on
hide
those
things,
drones.
to get rid of things, because if he's ultimately caught, he certainly doesn't want to incriminate himself, or certainly not incriminate himself as much as he would at the beginning of this. So there's a lot of parts happening right now in parallel with one another, and all of this hopefully will give us some answers.
About the dogs, because I think you've mentioned in the past, not only can they find where someone is, equally importantly, they can find where someone isn't, and that's important.
Absolutely, Ashley. What they've learned over the years is that knowing where someone isn't is just as helpful and very important to the investigation. In many of these cases I've worked, it's been a process of elimination. Also, the great thing about dogs is that they can check an area much more quickly and efficiently, and even
Dogs are
more
incredible.
accurately than human searchers.
Dogs that detect blood sugar, different diseases where people can pass out, the dog can sense all that, and dogs are incredible.
Because in essence, we talk about the desert. When the ground is disturbed and the shifting winds and the sand, it's very difficult for us to look and see, well, it all looks disturbed out here. How do we figure out where something might be? Well, we're dogs, you can't hide scent. People have been trying to hide scent from dogs for many years, but dogs can pick up scent days, months, years, and in fact, many years later. So dogs are an excellent resource for.
So I missed your comment up there about the sheriff's ego. Sorry. Yeah, I think you're right. I've seen other professionals say the same thing.
Something like this. In addition, they also can find evidence for us, whether something was there and is still there, something tangible that we can pick up and take into custody as evidence, but also something that was there and then removed, but the scent is still there. But at the same time, if the dogs are telling us there's no scent here, we can mark it off and then move on to an area of possibly finding evidence, finding Miss Guthrie, and finding answers.
Talk to me a little bit about the environment. I think of Arizona as hot and dry and dusty. It's not. It is in the day, and it can be different at night. How does that affect the dogs and their work?
Absolutely, Ashley. So if we think about scent as moisture or water, in the heat of the day, that water or moisture is going to dissipate very quickly. So the scent is essentially going to disappear and die out. Whereas at night, it's going to be much more alive and much more viable for the dogs to be able to pick that up. While at the same time, they'll be able to work longer and better. So in a hot, dry, arid environment, oftentimes we'll deploy the dogs at night instead of during the day, and it works very well.
I think I'd heard somebody say in your line of work that a very light rain actually enhances the scent that they might be looking for, but a big rain is exactly what you don't want.
That's exactly right. So if you think about scent, again, when the moisture, it really percolates that scent. If you think about after a rain where things smell much cleaner and better and fresher, even for us, it's the same thing for dogs. So a little bit of moisture is extremely helpful and makes a big difference in the scent, whereas you're right, the heavy rains can wash it away.
What about the longevity of scent? I mean, I keep coming back to the fact that we're in week number 4. If there was scent in a particular area, let's just say in the desert, would it still be there 4, 5, 8, 10, 30 weeks out?
So we're again working parallel investigations, and it's the same thing with scent. If we're looking for somebody that's alive and you're walking down this path or wherever, scent can die out pretty quickly, a matter of hours, certainly in a matter of days. Whereas if you're looking for someone that is deceased, their scent can be absorbed into the environment and last hundreds of years. I have used my dogs in revolutionary battlefield sites where they have actually found soldiers buried on the battlefield.
So if you
so
just
that
join,
scent
these two
can
have
stay
been
there
rambling
for
God
many
knows how
years and be viable for the dogs for a long time.
Literally the difference between the scent of decomposition and the scent of a live person.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
How long does the scent of a live person fall off?
So when we're walking, we have our skin grafts that fall off. And again, let's say if somebody's walking down a paved road, hot, arid conditions, that scent can dissipate in a...
Isn't that amazing? They claim that most of the dust in your house is skin that you shed. That is so weird.
matter of minutes. Whereas if they're walking in a wooded environment with trees and brush, that scent can be collected in the vegetation. It might last a few more hours, maybe a day or two, but I would say probably the max would be about 48 to 72 hours in optimal conditions where live scent would still be in an area that would be viable for the dog to be able to pick up and actually follow where that scent goes.
Again, the first, 48 to 72 hours so critical. Maybe the reason why we're not seeing a lot of canines out right now, and maybe the reason why we may see
wasp and ant activity is quickly increasing.
I gotta get YouTube Premium.
Coming out, in the near future, and to that end, to the search efforts again, as we talk about parallel search efforts, a search for Nancy alive, a search for Nancy maybe not alive. Tell me about the plan. Like, what is the overall strategy? Grid searches, line searches, regional. I mean, we've got this news about a neighboring county.
There you go with the grid search. You said they should have did in the first couple of days. Talking about it a month later.
County going out with the signal sniffer, but technically, how does it work?
So if we transition into 2 investigations, certainly her being alive has been going on for 4 weeks. So let's say if I'm called on this case or a similar case that, all right, we're going to consider the person is no longer alive. How I approach this is literally going back to ground zero, starting over, where the person was last confirmed to have been seen, in this case at her home, start there and then work our way out. Because if you think about it, from day one, we've been looking for Miss Guthrie alive. So with the anticipation that she would be visible.
Either way, you got to keep in mind that she left that house in that neighborhood in a vehicle. She didn't walk. Nobody carried her. She left in a vehicle. That's what you need to look for. Analyze all that footage of all the Ring doorbells, the license plate cameras, the traffic cameras. She had to have left there in a vehicle.
And she would be found and things of that sort. Let's just say, theorize, now we're looking for Miss Guthrie, that maybe she's not alive. Maybe she's concealed in some way. So that's why when I work these cases, and I'm a coordinator for a cold case unit here in Georgia, that we all start from ground zero where that person was last seen, whether it was 4 weeks ago or 40 years ago. We're going to start there. I just worked a case here in Atlanta, a 30-year-old cold case. And the dogs found evidence in the garage where this person was confirmed killed, that we found evidence, and that case has been reopened even after 30 years. And I would approach this case the same way. Start at her home, work our way out, and then go to other areas such as where the signal is. Again, start there at ground zero and work our way out from there.
Well, Tracy, if Mrs. Guthrie was killed in her home, if that is one of the possibilities, wouldn't a cadaver dog be able to tell right away that that happened?
So I think the terminology there is that the dogs can't tell us if somebody's been killed or not. They can simply tell us if there's human remains sent. So we, as the human investigators, have to determine, all right, is this person deceased or not because of whatever situation that we have found. The dogs can simply lead us to an area that, quote, warrants further investigation, but they can't tell us if somebody's been killed there or not.
How quickly after someone dies do they give off the scent of human remains?
That's a good question. I was wondering that. What? That's not me, that's her. Shit. The first piece of information all night and the audio goes out.
Is the blood that we've learned was found inside the home any different than the scent of, say, decomposition if someone were killed in the home and, say, were there for a few
I wonder if that was too graphic and YouTube killed that audio.
minutes or, say, 20 minutes?
Well, that's a great question, Ashley. So when we talk about, again, most people know as cadaver dogs, they are technically human remains detection dogs. And that, again, is the full spectrum from a full-size body to skeleton remains to everything in between. From the
I don't know this for sure, but I think like if there's an earthquake and they're looking for people, the dogs that look for survivors and the dogs that look for cadavers are not, or dead bodies are not the same dogs. I think that, but I don't know that for sure.
training perspective of dogs, we train them with all different types of human remains, whether it's blood or human remains or bones or whatever that might be.
Are you kidding me?
The point being is that when the dogs respond, they're going to respond exactly the same way if it's just blood or if it's a full-size body or a bloody rag or maybe somebody was buried there and removed, whatever the circumstance might be. And it also could be something totally unrelated to a crime. Let's say somebody cut themselves in the kitchen, had nothing to do with a crime. There's blood there. The dogs are going to respond to that. Another situation that we have come across is if there is a menstruating female that lives inside the home and there's products, used products in the bathroom garbage can. The dogs would go there and alert to that, just like they would to a dead body, because to them, it's all human remains and they respond exactly the same way. So that's when we have to step in and determine, why did they alert here? Is it a crime? Is it not a crime? Is it related to this crime that we're involved with?
It's almost as though it would be more helpful if there weren't blood inside the home. And if a dog alerted to human remains, they would have more of an answer.
Yes, I would agree with that assessment. Yes.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah, Irish,
Talk to me about the psychology again, with your background, you know, having a PhD in this, of the high profile nature of this case and the bad guy with regard to distance. Because the sheriff has said that he thinks that, you know, she's close. Other people have posited
I read that the first time, then I got worried.
If Nancy's pacemaker separated from her Apple product, well, Dawn was only a couple hours away, and therefore he'd probably have to have done something within a few hours. What are your theories when it comes to how close you think Nancy might be, either alive or dead?
Well, I think the overwhelming agreement here is that this house was targeted by this individual. So that goes into, as investigators, the number one thing we're going to ask is motive. Why did this person, first of all, target this home? And then second of all, why did they take Miss Guthrie away from her home and keep her? So there's a lot of questions that we have, and it's all about motive, and that's very, very important. That's key to figuring that out. So when we think about the bad guy's behavior and why he's doing what he's doing, it gives the appearance of, all right, he targeted this home for a reason. Maybe she surprised him. Maybe.
The fact that he was there more than once, he had to have went there for a reason. It wasn't a random, well, I'm going to break in and steal the television. That's got to be obvious, you would think. But then the motive, take her for what? For ransom? You take her because she knows something that you don't want her to tell? That's what Riley said earlier. She knew something illegal. This is crazy. Nothing you can think of actually makes full sense.
He wasn't expecting her to be home, that the home would be vacant. It would be empty during his time. And he was surprised by her. And now he's like, oh no, I was not expecting to take her out of the home because she's going to identify me. And now what do I do next? And so on and so forth. Being the fact that he's targeted this home, I would say, not only from my experience, but also the research I've done, is that most likely he lived close within the area. I can't imagine him living, let's say, 2 hours away and then driving to this home, which I understand is a pretty isolated area, very low crime area, coming to this home, checking it out, and then driving back 2 hours.
If the guy's going to kidnap somebody and ask for $1 million or $6 million ransom, I think he'd drive 2 hours for that, lady. Come on now.
So I think is a presumption would be from a psychological perspective and just from my experience and research that he's likely much closer than 2 hours away. And I think it's also important to note that what people do during nighttime can actually be quite different than what they do in the daytime. So I think that's a factor to consider as well.
What the hell does that mean?
Meaning that most cases at nighttime, their behaviors are much more quick, much more shorter, much more unplanned.
Quick and shorter would be a similar description of the act.
So because they can't see what they're doing, meaning if they go out into the desert and they think, all right, if we take somebody out into this desert, they may think they've walked a mile, and most often it's just maybe 40 yards, because our depth perception, and we think that we've gone much further than we have, is often the case. Because when you're driving at night, it does seem like you're driving much further distance because you can't see exactly what's around you. Whereas the daytime, you have a clear perspective of how far you've driven because you can see around. And then when you park,
Yeah, 2 years of worrying, that would be horrible.
you can actually go into the woods, be able to determine the distance much more clearly because you can see what you're doing, whereas nighttime you cannot. So if we're searching for somebody at night, or we believe that they've done something to somebody at night, almost without exception, we generally find them much closer to the yard, to the road, or to the pathway, or some way of transport.
Quick dump.
A roadway that maybe they drove in. The person is typically not that much further into the woods.
What about the notion that because this is so high profile, this perpetrator might want to put as much distance between himself and the epicenter of this crime as possible?
I think that's a real possibility here, with the caveat that this is so high profile that the idea that he would take her, 2 hours away without getting caught. And to be frank, Ashley, it's actually quite uncommon for anyone, whether it's a planned abduction of a child or a woman, to take them and travel many, many miles with them away. It does happen, but when you look at the research and the reality, it's quite rare. And I would say in this case as well, that the idea that he would take her and travel hours and hours away with her, I think is unlikely. At the same time, if he wants to get away from her as far away as possible, I think that is a possibility, but I don't think he would take her with him.
We've covered so many cases where criminals have tried to burn their evidence. Is that something that hinders dogs?
Actually, it does not. So when we search areas, one of the things I'm always looking for is any evidence of burns, whether it's an actual fire pit that might be in the backyard or somewhere else. If I see any possibility that anything's been burned, I have the dogs check it. And from my experience, the dogs have no problem detecting scent even after something's been burned.
And then last question, and that is the pacemaker has changed the metric on this search from so many cases that we've covered before. The pacemaker presumably has metal parts. It's sending the signal, so the signal sniffers have been brought in. But what about just good old-fashioned metal detectors? Is that something that you could foresee being part of this?
Absolutely. Not only just for her pacemaker, but any evidence that might be jewelry, and with all due respect, firearms, or something, any kind of metal that might be part of this criminal investigation. Metal detectors are an excellent tool to use, not only in this case, but actually they're used in many cases.
Dr. Sargent, thank you so much. This has just been remarkable. You're a wealth of information.
Well, thank you, Ashley. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me, and I certainly wish the investigators the best of luck, and thank you again for covering this case so well and so respectfully, and my thoughts and prayers go to the family.
I think we all feel the same way. Thank you again.
Thank you.
My great thanks to Tracy Sargent. And I'll tell you what, we're going to keep watching how this investigation continues because, like I said, there always has to be a drawdown. But what's that going to look like?
That's terrible.
And is the FBI, even though they've scaled back much of their operation back to Phoenix and the headquarters, they do say they've got their operators on the ground in Tucson.
That terrible comment was to Irish, not to the rambling Banfield over here.
But how's it going to look? what is this task force? How many hours, how many man hours, how many people are they going to put on this? Because they still have thousands of hours of video to go through, from what I understand. And so that's a lot of eyeballs and a lot of real-time video watching to see if there's some clue, any clue that comes through the video. And that's not, even touching on the tips. The 40,000 plus tips that have come into the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department. That is so much material to these are rabbit holes, many of them. Look, some of them are like Looney Tunes and you can write them off pretty quick, but a lot of them have to be investigated and they all have to be looked at. And they all have to be looked at by human eyes, right? And so that's just time. It's just time and it's gumshoe work. But guys, we were 6 weeks from the Idaho murders to the arrest of Brian Kohberger. Don't lose faith. It can happen. And I particularly have a lot of hope with genetic genealogy. I know it feels like that trail went cold, but believe me when I say this. I think that guy, when he put on his gloves, forgot about the bite light in his mouth. And when he took it out of his mouth with those gloves, his DNA, his saliva was all over those gloves. And he touched something. He got in a door. He touched that bracket for the Ring camera. He touched something else in that house. So I fully believe that it's possible that maybe they'll still find his DNA. And maybe he's not in the offender database, right? CODIS. But with genealogy, I think they can find him. It just sometimes takes weeks, months, and even years. But if they can find the Golden State Killer, maybe they can find this guy too. In the meantime, if you know anything,
like 30 years
if you know anything at all, if you think someone acted in a strange way on February 1st or 2nd or 3rd, or even in the weeks ensuing, somebody just didn't act the same way they normally do. They took weird days off. They vanished without a trace. They had no good answer. They behaved weird. They were tense. They were nervous. They were odd. And they maybe look like someone on that ring cam. If you know anything like that, 1-800-CALL-FBI. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Your tip could break the case wide open. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.
Well, that was 2 hours just on her rambling, which the guest was interesting. Not to mention, I don't know if anybody was on there when I did the AI robot interview. Good information, but it's obviously an AI guy. But man, he looks pretty real. But it's AI stuff's getting kind of crazy. Anyway, it is 12:13, and I need to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for work. So I got to call it quits here. Thanks you guys for watching. Riley, Black Irish. Bobby. There was one more, wasn't there? Pam. We get everybody. All right. Good night. Go check out another video, like it or something. Thank you for watching. Good night.